I've got 4 questions at the end of every podcast I love to ask my guests. But it occurred to me this week that I've never answered these questions myself. And so I decided that I wanted to do a quick little fast-paced episode for you today, sharing with you what my answer to those 4 questions would be. Hello there, and welcome to the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. I'm your host, Sam Hind, and I'm here to help you move the needle in your business, whether that is using tools like social media, helping you to be inspired and motivated and have the tools that you need to achieve those big, hairy, audacious goals that you may have. Or maybe it is just shifting a thought pattern that you may have that helps you be the best version of yourself that you can be today. Well, this is a little bit of a different episode because I am constantly interviewing guests on my podcast. And while I love to do that, I've got 4 questions at the end of every podcast I love to ask my guests. But it occurred to me this week that I've never answered these questions myself. And so I decided that I wanted to do a quick little fast-paced episode for you today, sharing with you what my answer to those 4 questions would be. And interestingly, I really enjoyed stopping and thinking about this for a moment. So I'm going to jump on in and I'm going to share with you my answer to my 4 favorite questions I would normally ask my own podcast guests. So let's dive on in. Okay, so usually at the end of my podcast, I like to kind of lighten things up and finish them off by asking 4 really cool questions. These are my favorite questions because they tell you a lot about people, but I also usually learn something for myself. So they're a little bit selfish as well. Number 1 is I ask people what is their favorite book for us to add to our accelerator book list. Now, the reason I love this question so much, aside from the fact that, of course, you find out about all sorts of different books, is it tells you a lot about people's personalities. I have had all sorts of answers to this question, including a response from one particular person that was, well, I don't read. At which point I had to pivot very quickly and ask another question. And we ended up with, he didn't listen to podcasts, and so I asked his favorite movie. Now, from that point onwards, I started pre-telling guests I was going to ask that question so that they had a little bit of time to prepare. But let me share with you what my book would be. And I'm going to tell you a little secret as I answer this one for myself, and that is that up until about 5 years ago, I actually was a book collector, not a reader. They're 2 very different hobbies. I love buying and collecting books with the intention of reading them. But I'll tell you something that I'm not very proud of, and that is that up until a few years ago, probably 5 years ago, I had never completed a personal development or nonfiction book. I loved reading, but I read fiction. And every personal development or growth book I ever started reading, I just couldn't finish until one day I decided that I really needed to change that because leaders are definitely readers and I wanted to grow myself. And so I came up with some strategies to help myself better read and challenged myself to finish at least 1 book every single month. I also then launched a book club within our Rise Up membership, and I am now reading 3, 4, sometimes 5 books a month because I use a combination of techniques. I don't read right before bed a nonfiction book because my brain is fried at that point. So that's where I get to reward myself with one of my favorite fiction reads. But I will read very first thing in the morning and I make it really easy to consume. So like 10, 15 minutes, bite-sized pieces. I will sometimes also read when I'm sitting down to have a coffee or lunch if I'm forcing myself to have a lunch break, which yes, sometimes I have to do. But the best way that I can get reading in is either on a plane or Audible. I love Audible. It has changed my life because I've got times that I'm doing other things where I can actually utilize that time better, like driving, like running, like walking, and cleaning the house even. And so, not that I get time to do that very often, let's face it. So I am literally reading via listening constantly. So let me answer that question for you because that was very long-winded, wasn't it? My answer to my question here is this book, which is called The Game of Life and How to Play It by Florence Scovel Shinn. Now, I have got a giant stack of books I love, but this one is I'm going to call it my book of the moment because this one is kind of a really short, easy to read summary of so many skill sets and laws that I have been reading about in so many different ways over many years. And this was actually handed to me by a really great friend about 3 months ago. And when he gave it to me, I started by reading it, and then I listened to it, and I listened to the whole thing in one run. And then I read it again, and then I ordered the workbook that you can order to come with it. And I'm now rereading it and really trying to absorb it. Here's what I love about it. It is about the universal laws, and it connects them to the Bible, so shows how they're biblical principles, but it shows you how to apply the universal laws in your everyday life. And this is not wishy-washy stuff. This is really implementable and powerful. And even if you don't believe in things like universal laws, you're crazy if you don't. But if you don't, it doesn't really matter, because these are principles that do make a difference in how you show up in the world. Now, here's what's really cool about this. This book was written in 1920. This was not a cool concept to talk about in 1920. So it just goes to show how old these laws are and these principles are. And Florence talks about it by sharing stories of how she has applied it with her and her patients as well. So I love this book so much. It's so easy to read. It's very quick, but man, is it powerful. And the person that handed to me said it totally changed his life. And I can see how, I can already see how it's making a big difference in mine. So that's my book I'm going to add to my own accelerator book list. Okay, the second question I ask is, what is your favorite quote? And often people give me 2 or 3 or 5. I'm going to take some liberties here as well, and I'm going to give you 2, because these are 2 that I use every single day. I repeat over and over and over and over and over and over again inside of my trainings. And these are just constant reminders for me. The first one is, where energy goes, energy flows. And this is a reminder that what we focus on, we get more of. If you are focused on what you don't want and what you're afraid of, you're going to get more of what you don't want and what you're afraid of. But if you focus more on what you're excited about, that's what you're going to attract in your life. Kind of also goes with the whole principle that's in this book as well, funnily enough. The other one is this, and this is a really interesting one, because it's a bit of a challenge. It's a bit of a face-to-face challenge, this one, and that is, when you don't know, you know. Man, oh man, have I seen this one play out in so many ways in my own life, but also in the lives of people around me as well. Just down to the degree where, if one of my kids says something to me like, I don't know what to do next, I'll ask them the question, well, if you did know, what would you do? What would you know? Or if you did know, what would you do? Or if you did know, what would be the best thing to do next? And they'll give me an answer just like that, which goes to show, and I can do this on myself as well, you can do it on yourself. We know, it's just that sometimes we're in the wrong space to be able to answer that question, or sometimes the answer isn't what we want. And so when you are stuck with making a decision, or you are stuck in a situation where you think, I don't know what to do next, or maybe you're trying to achieve something in your business or your life and you're thinking, I don't know the next move or what I should do next. If I'm inside of a coaching situation with my members in Rise Up, I will stop them, get them to close their eyes, and I'll simply ask them this. But if you did know, what would be the next move? And give them a moment to answer it, but without thinking about it. Because the truth is that we already have all of the answers that we need, and we already have all the resources we need around us in order to achieve our goals and the things that are on our heart. So when you don't know, you know. That's another of my favorite quotes. Okay, one of the other questions that I ask people, and I love this one, man, have I had some funny answers about this one over the years, is, if you could have a superpower, any superpower, what would it be and why? Now, I love this because, yes, it tells you a lot about people's personality, but sometimes I get totally stunned at the response. I remember interviewing Kenya Kelly. She's a TikTok expert, absolutely gorgeous personality. And get this, she used to be a pastor. So she is a Christian. She was preaching. She's a very, very, very God-led woman, beautiful woman. This is why I am so shocked by what her response was. I asked her this question and she said, it would be invisibility. And I said, well, what would you do with that? And she said, I would use it to go into a bank and rob it. And she cracked up laughing. And it just goes to show her incredible sense of humor and her beautiful personality. But I did think that that was absolutely hilarious. The most common answer I get is flying. But that's not my answer today. My answer is actually one that's kind of inspired by Oscar Trimboli, the deep listening expert who came and spoke on my podcast a number of years ago now. And he's one of those people who really had a profound impact on me because he showed me the power of listening to what's not really being said. And his book on deep listening is also a really brilliant one to pick up if you haven't checked that one out before. But or go and listen to that episode with him. He really left me thinking about a lot of things, and he gave me some skills that I still use to this day to help me be a better listener. But that would be what I would choose to be my superpower is the ability to listen between the lines, to be a super listener and hear what's not being said or what's really being meant. And I'm going to add to that a super skill of presence as well, being able to be present in the moment and really no matter what's going on around me, being able to almost compartmentalize my life and be able to be in that moment, wherever that moment is. So that would be my superpower. If I were to pick any other superpower, it would be to stop time and be able to just get stuff done. Stop time or slow time down. So I picked 3, but this is my podcast, so I can do whatever I want, right? So that would be my answer to that question. The last one is by far my favorite, and it's interesting because this one will really get people going into their heart space. If they could go back and say one thing to their past self, what would they say? Or what would that be? And you'll often see people really stop. And if you're watching the videos and the podcast, in that moment, you'll see people going inwards. They really do often go inwards. And you know that they've really done that when you start to see them get emotional. It's not uncommon at that point that we might get a tear or two or they do get highly emotional, because that's the moment where they really stop and think about, where they are now versus where they came from. And you see the love for the person that they were back then. We all can probably resonate with that if you were to go back and, show some grace to past you or teach a lesson to past you, what would that be? And so, for me, I love that question so much because it's where someone gets a chance to really share probably their key life lesson, to be perfectly honest. It is that moment where they can share with you the one main thing that they have learned in life that they would tell themselves if they could. So you know that you're getting a golden nugget in that very moment, because if it's something they would tell themselves, it's something they're telling you as well. So when I ask that question moving forward of my guests, really stop and listen, because this is a key lesson they've learned. My answer to that question, and there are so many things that went through my mind here, but the one that really stuck with me the most, if I could go back and I could speak to past Sam, there are several moments in my life where I wish I could go back and do this. And one of them is when I became a parent for the first time. But actually, I think I'd go right back to childhood here, and I would say, I want you to remember this all throughout your life, from when you get married to when you get divorced, to when you have kids, to the hard times as well as the good times, to when you get your first job, to when you get your dream job, to when you start your business. Everything that you experience in life, I want you to remember this: savor the moment, because time goes so quickly and experiences go by so fast. And there are times in our life where we wish them away, whether we're sick or unwell, or we're going through an experience where a loved one is unwell, or, even in my case, going through a divorce, going through, the loss of babies, all of those things we kind of wish away. We're like, I want this to be gone and I want to get on with the next thing. But if I could go back in time and re-experience any of those things that have changed the life I have today, that have forged who I am today, I would go back and re-experience those things so I could be in those moments, because good or bad, you never get them back, but they do form who you are and who you get to become. When we have our kids, if you're a parent, you're listening to this, you'll understand this so fully, that when we have our kids, we go through tough times, newborns screaming, kids sick and unable to do anything about that. Those are the moments where you kind of wish them away. I just want them to be well again, or I just want them to stop crying, or I want to get through this phase and move on to an easier one. By the way, I probably tell myself as well, don't think your kids get easy when they get older, because they don't. True story. We all know that's true if we've got older kids. But savor the moment, because if I could go back and I could experience that moment where Levi was a little baby and he was really unwell, even though it's not a time that you want to wish on your kids, it's still a moment in time that you want to be present with. And if I could have him in my arms and snuggling with him again just for a moment and remembering that time, not just the time we're in now where he's 13 years old and, time has passed so quickly, I would take any of those moments. All of them are precious. All of them are special. So savor the good things, but also savor the challenging times as well. Every moment, just stop and enjoy it. Enjoy is probably the wrong word, but just be present with it for what it is. If it's emotional, if it's scary, if it's fear-filled, if it's challenging, whatever that is, acknowledge what it is and be present with it. That would be my piece of advice to myself. So if you're going through something right now, I'm going to give you that advice. Be present with what you're going through. Just savor it, because it's forming and forging the person you're going to become. And in a year or 2 years or 10 years' time, you're going to look back on this moment, this time you're going through, and you're going to think, I wish I could remember the details of what happened. I can see now why that had to happen, or I can see now why that exciting thing happened. But I really wish I could go back and experience every moment again so I could really savor what happened and that time I went through in order to become who I am today. A weird thing to say, I suppose, when you're thinking about things as negatives sometimes, but definitely something I would go back and say to my past self. So that's my 4 answers to these questions. I'd love to know what your 4 answers are. If you want to share them with me, why don't you send me an email? I'd love to hear from you. I'll put my email in the show notes. I'd love to hear your 4 answers. And it's great to connect with people. So send them through. Let me hear from you. But I want to thank you as well for tuning into this podcast. It's a real honor and a privilege to be able to serve in this way, to be able to connect with people all over the globe and help them grow not just their business, but grow who they are. And my mission and my passion is helping you be the best version of yourself, believe fully in your worth and your capabilities to be able to become the person you were put here to be and live the life that you were put here to live. So thank you for tuning in and listening into this podcast and being a part of it. Help us spread it to more people. Share it with a few people that you think might benefit from hearing the messages on here. And don't forget, if you haven't done it before, to hit that subscribe button on whatever channel you're listening to it on or watching this on, whether it's YouTube, Spotify, one of the podcast channels, or even just on social media. But that's it from me today. This was a quick, easy episode, bit of fun, something a little bit different. Look forward to seeing you on here again next week. That's it from me. Bye for now. Thank you for joining us in this episode of the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. If you love listening and you found that this was helpful for your direct selling business, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also check out the recommended video that's popped up on your screen right here. I look forward to seeing you again next time. Bye for now.